Hey everyone, Tammy Davis. Thank you very much for joining me. Before I say anything about what this video is about, I just want to point out that those are not orbs flying around, or for the most part, I don't think they are. I see dust particles. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because I'm actually now in New Mexico, and it's a dusty place, which usually we don't see this much, but it's extraordinarily windy outside. And as it is, I live in an old place, and obviously that things are moving around. So, yes, before anybody says anything about it, being inundated with orbs, it's dust. That's the disclaimer before I get started on anything else. As far as what I want to talk about, well, that is basically it's an advisory on why. And a testimony as to why less essential oils is absolutely necessary. And it has to do with nanotechnology. And other ways that that's being labeled is delivery systems, enhanced delivery systems in products, emulsifiers that get added to products to enhance absorption, assimilation. So the reason why this is such a big deal is because essential oils actually accentuate the uptake of nutrients. And so this is, like I said, this is what oils actually do. And because they are lipophilic, they, like many other chemicals, have the ability to affect cell receptor activity, and they do enhance nutrient uptake. And when we're combining that with nanotechnology or enhanced delivery systems and or emulsifiers, the risk of overwhelming the body is great. It's actually very significant. And I actually have done an awful lot of looking into this, and I'm going to include a document in the description box below that you can take a look at. It's actually a fact sheet that was produced in Europe with regards to nanotechnology and the types that they're looking at. And again, it also goes even further than what they talk about in this document. As I mentioned, there's things like emulsifiers, there's enhanced delivery systems, which would basically be considered liposomes. I'm not poo-pooing or saying there's anything wrong with that. I completely understand the technology. It actually is a declaration, so to speak, a passive declaration of knowing that when the body is under stress, that it is not assimilating the nutrients properly. And that is not because it's broken or something's going wrong. It's in chronic or a heightened state of fight or flight. As a result of that, the physiology absolutely changes. Now, I've included that document in I believe with other videos, but I'm going to include that here as well, that you can actually take a look firsthand at some of the things that actually alter. And the biggest one is an alteration to the digestive system, because let's face it, when we are running for our lives, or there's something chasing us, or we've had a life-altering or a serious event occur, we're not thinking about eating the next meal. We're not looking at having an apple pie or having a steak or anything along those lines. We are actually focused on what's going on, and that is because the system, our body, has the ability to change the chemistry in order to increase our activity, our mental state, in order to address the situation. That said, digestion kind of slows down, but on an ongoing basis, which is what's happening as a result of the world that we currently live in. Besides mental and emotional, there's a lot of environmental factors that are occurring. And as a result, the body is in a heightened state of stress. Therefore, digestion is decreased, and the immune system is actually jacked. Because why? Because if we're not breaking down, especially the macronutrients properly, we have larger particles floating, molecules of food particles floating throughout the system that the body does not recognize as usable. Therefore, it alerts the immune system. And so we just have this mess train wreck, if you will, like I said, on an ongoing basis. When it's short term, it's not a problem. It's actually to our advantage. But long term, this is where oxidative stress comes in. This is where your genetic SNPs, if you will, show up, because the body has flipped some switches to adjust the chemistry. And in a recent article that I just wrote about CYP450 enzymes, there is the ability to reverse some of these. A lot of our medications, or not a lot, but there's a number of medications that do alter genetic function, which means that they're irreversible. So helping the system with essential oils is good. And again, this is another reason why I can understand the nanotechnology, because they're trying to override this stress response. They're trying to override or get in under the radar, if you will, of the immune system. And so they're delivering nutrients at such a small molecule that the body doesn't sense it as a threat, and with hopes of actually getting the nutrients into the cells. Now, that said, it's when you combine it with essential oils, and when you read the document and you actually see how many things we are consuming on a regular basis that actually contain this level of technology, which tells me that our body is, besides everything else, extraordinarily overwhelmed with the amount of information. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, if this is your first time watching me, my background is in pharmacology and in aromatherapy. I am actually certified as a master clinical aromatherapist, but I've extended that to call it a phytotherapist, because I do work with all manner of plant, primarily whole foods combined with oils, because that combination is very beneficial to the system, and it actually accentuates the results. But I don't recommend doing all of that with all the technology. At some point, we have to kind of moderate everything that we're doing. So when I've discovered how much we are exposed to these nano molecules, I was fishing for the right word, as you could tell. When we're exposed to so many nanomolecules, in addition to all the other things that the body is exposed to, now we're taking in things that at a rapid level, at the cellular level, and it is quite possible that it is causing the exact opposite reaction. Because for as much as we have this nanotechnology, we're not seeing remarkable improvement, which tells me that something isn't occurring properly in the system. And my suspicion is that, the system is overwhelmed. Every chemical that we're exposed to, any chemical, whether it's water, air, your coffee, everything has chemicals in it. These are molecules that the body has to process. And let's be real, the way nature communicates is, if we were going to break it down, it communicates via chemicals. That's the reason why I say information overload. There's too much information coming in. The body is getting so many different messages. It is on overwhelm. It's on overload. And my suspicion is actually it's adding to our stress at the cellular level. And there is more than likely some benefit. I do know that in some cases with some of these products, people are claiming to be improving health-wise, and that's great. I celebrate that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the situation for all of us, because your body is different from the person sitting next to you, from the person living in the house next to you, from your coworker, from your child. Every body is different, and so how every body responds to a product is going to vary depending on the individual genome. So we can't just attach ourselves to somebody, saying that this is like the miracle supplement, or this is the be-all, end-all. I mean, I'm just absolutely fascinated by the level of research that occurs on a daily basis of plant life, plant chemistry, the biosynthesis of chemicals in the system. Again, like I said, I've extended my title to be phytotherapist, because I work with all manner of plant. And that is primarily because I'm very interested in the way we are our drug development. And a good portion of our medications do stem from the research of plants, and I do know that for centuries now, man has been absolutely fascinated by plants. And we're learning a lot about chemistry. The DNA of a plant is not unlike the DNA of the human, unlike the DNA of an animal. The differences are the placement of the alleles. Just the sequencing, the DNA sequencing is different. That's what makes us different species or different organisms. But that said, the chemistry is the same. The way a lot of these systems are working, what I mean by processes of breaking down nutrients, producing different chemicals, and what these different chemicals are used for, can be paralleled. I have seen very few things that occur in plants that do not occur in humans, which means that we have the ability. This is the part that fascinates me, is we actually have the ability to offset toxic situations, to offset injury. We are so pro-anti-inflammatory and anti-pro-inflammatory. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, is we love all the anti-inflammatory products, and we are just like totally against inflammation, when in fact inflammation is part of the healing process. This is in part the reason why I say when we get sick, we're in a healing crisis, because there's inflammation occurring. We just don't want to get rid of all of it. So there comes a balance. One of the things my father used to say all the time when I was a child is everything in moderation, and no truer words have been ever said, in my opinion. Or there have been other things that have been pretty spot on, but that one is very, very applicable, because I just resisted that, because I was such an extremist as a young person. And now that I realize that inflammation has as much of a place in our world as anti-inflammatories. And again, we have to help the body modulate this. It's not about just getting rid of all the inflammation, but yes, when we're having in a chronic state of illness, there's a lot of inflammation happening. Yes, anti-inflammatories are helping the body produce anti-inflammatories is even better. And so I do understand a lot of the nanotechnology. I do respect the supplementation, and I do also recognize the fact that not everyone is going to align with what I'm proposing. But what I am saying here is, if you align more with taking supplements, and you want to, and once you take a look at this document and you see that nanotechnology is being placed into our clothing, into our personal care, and in our body care, I mean, it's in everything, including our nutraceuticals, everything that you put on the skin. I mean, these patches that we can put on for different reasons, whether it be for weight loss or for smoking cessation or birth control. I mean, all of these things that we're putting on our skin actually has emulsifiers to help get it into the system. You have to use caution when using that, combining that with essential oils, because as I said, essential oils will accentuate the uptake of nutrients. And if you're doing all of these things, you could be overloading your system and actually adding to the inflammation that's occurring, and almost stimulating the exact opposite effect you were going for. So I'm going to, like I said, going to include those documents in the description box below. And if you have any questions, please let me know. But again, this basically is an advisory to use caution if you're including essential oils into your day, into your lifestyle. And that is simply because I know that more and more people, there's an increasing number of the population that is using essential oils for whatever reason, and they are a form of nutrient uptake, because they do, as lipophilic chemicals, have the ability to modify cellular activity, and they will, there's obviously, this is a fairly new process, so it's hard to say what is going to be interacting with what. And it's hard to predict how that's going to go when we have so many people on the planet and everybody is different. So please use caution. Please read this document. Understand what you're being exposed to, and possibly look into, if you want to include essential oils into your life, then you might want to consider reducing the amount of supplementation. You might want to consider actually consulting with me so that I can help guide you into creating more kind of modifying your life and creating a level of stability so that there is less interaction, less overload, and better results. All right. Tammy at synergessence.com. Synergessence.com is my website. You're always welcome to follow me. Tammy Davis 8 on Instagram and Tammy Davis 8 on Twitter. Thanks again for watching, and by all means, please send in your questions. I look forward to chatting with you. All right. Thanks. Bye.